Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Norman Jordan. He's the color commentator for Vanderbilt football. Today's show presented by The Well Coffee House, which turns coffee into water. The Well is a coffee house with the mission to bring clean water to the world. Over 30 communities across the globe now have access to safe water, health, and hope, thanks to the Well Coffee House. You can make an impact by visiting one of its locations today. There are 4 of them in the Nashville area. Those can be found in Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. More information can be found at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We thank our co-sponsor, WellSpire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center. That's located in the Gulch. Today's news presented by Sutherland & Belk, a local injury law firm committed to helping those who have been injured in accidents. If you or someone you know has been in a wreck or other accident, reach out to Sutherland & Belk, see what your rights are. You can find their contact info online at sbinjurylaw.com. Well, Vanderbilt is starting a campaign to help Turner's heroes. That, of course, is the foundation started by his teammate, tight end Cody Markle. Of course, Turner Cockrell, the late tight end who succumbed to cancer at the end of last season. Anyway, his teammates have started this foundation. It is designed to help kids who have cancer and ease what they are going through. There will be an 82-hour campaign in which the foundation is attempting to raise $50,000. That will start at kickoff of the LSU game. Go to viewcommodores.com and see how you can help. Today's guest line is presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've used Boll & Branch sheets for years. I've never gone back. You should try them too. They are fair trade certified. That means they pay their employees and treat them fairly. You can try Boll & Branch sheets for a month, and you can return them within that month, but you're not going to want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That's spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. The questions I will be asking Norman Jordan today will be sponsored by Vanderbilt fan and independent insurance agent Josh Minton of Brentwood. Do you need an insurance agent who knows your unique needs and circumstances and will tailor an insurance plan to fit them? Josh is your guy. Call him 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/JD Minton. Josh has been my insurance agent for a couple of years. Give him a shot. I think you'll be pleased, and tell him you heard about it on the Vandy Sports Podcast. Norman Jordan joins us now. He's the color commentator for Vanderbilt football. Norman, hope you enjoyed your bye week. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, I had a good week off. The yard looks good, and so I'm ready to go back and let's have another ball game.
If your yard looks good, I want to know how you pull that off, because my yard is dry and crunchy.
Well, you told me it didn't matter if I lied or not, Chris. So I just went with a lie.
Right. Well, you know, when the grass beneath your feet sounds like gravel, I think that's a bad thing, right?
That's the way I'm looking at it.
Oh, it'll be aerating and seeding before long for me. So that'll be my fall workout, I guess. But let's go into football. We had a conversation off mic that was kind of interesting. You had gone back and watched some film and figured out some things with the offense that weren't going well, and I'll just give you the floor to start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening. Well, first of all, they've got to get the line straightened out. And a lot of that is they've got guys that aren't playing the positions they played. And I expect that to start fixing itself soon, because you're going to have a player or two back, and then you can start plugging people in where they belong. So hopefully we'll see that real soon, as in real soon, maybe Saturday. I don't have any idea. But, the passing game, they're having a hard time. And it's what you expect when you see a team lose their offensive coordinator and a team lose their 4-year starting quarterback. That you've got a lot of rough patches to work out, and you got to figure out. Well, maybe Kyle Shermer went to Elijah a lot here and understood that, and they had good chemistry. But you got to figure out what Riley does now, and you got to figure out how can I get Pinckney into the play. And I've been a big fan of that is Pinkney's got to be into the game because that's the play that holds the linebackers. So somehow, some way, you've got to get that worked out where your quarterback, what does he feel good about? What play does he like in what situation? And that's what happens when you have a new quarterback and a new offensive coordinator.
And what you were seeing is a guy that's, I guess, not seeing the whole field when you watch him on tape.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's hard to watch it, just pull up YouTube or whatever. But to me, a lot of it looks like, if you look and you see where the free safety is going, that means the play is going to your left. That doesn't mean the right side of the field should be shut off. You need to look that way and then go back left. So, I don't know. I never was a quarterback coach and never, thank goodness, played quarterback. But, if you look at the really good quarterbacks, they look off and then come back. And I think that maybe what's missing there, that if I'm a defensive back and I see the quarterback look to his left, and I know that's the half of the field that's going to happen on, if I'm on the right side, well, game over. And if I'm on the left side, we'll work a lot harder to make sure I got my man covered.
They have taken some criticism for not going up tempo. I think it's just a philosophical thing that they do every year. I don't think Derek wants to put his defense out there quickly if they go 3 and out and run the risk. I don't think it really matters who the quarterback is, but let's say I'm wrong about that. If a quarterback is struggling with reads or however you would want to put it, I don't know how the proper way to phrase that, but you just said it. Whatever label you want to put on that. Is that the thing where if he's struggling with those things, you probably want the game to slow down, and so therefore you would not want to go up tempo because he's already having trouble processing enough things? Is that a fair criticism, or is that unrelated at all?
That's a good question, and frankly, I'm not the one that could answer it because, again, I never really played the position. But I think what happens is that you've got to figure out where is this guy the most comfortable. The thing I remember, and I think it was when Foles got put into the Super Bowl or into the playoffs for the Eagles, and the coach came to him and said, "You've got to tell me what passes you can throw and what passes you can't throw, and we'll work around that." And I think that's really at the heart of what college football is right now, is what can you do, what can you not do? We'll stay away from what you can't do, and we'll do what you can do, and we'll find a way to make this other stuff work. So, that to me is what they got to figure out. And so you've got all this new chemistry going on, and, coaches trying to understand players, players trying to understand coaches, new quarterback trying to understand the receivers, the running backs. So it has a chance to work its way out, and I believe it will. So I have every hope that, they'll kind of figure out, all right, this is what we've got to do, and this is how we're going to do it.
The other thing that we thought we would see more of was quarterback running, run pass options, things like that. They certainly worked on that in fall camp, and what we were told and I think expected to see was with more quarterback mobility, that opened the playbook. That also does not seem to be the case. I don't know if that's related to the offensive line or something else, but I'm interested in your thoughts on why that's not been a greater part of the offense.
Oh, I wish we would have talked about this before we went on. I'm not the biggest proponent of the RPO. I think everybody's trying to do it, and not everybody does it well. I watched the Florida game against Kentucky, and they kept trying to do the RPO. And Franks is a great athlete, and I'm sure he'll be fine after he gets healed. But I think Florida's in a better position because they got a throwing quarterback who really can't do the RPO. So I'm either going to run or I'm going to pass. And I think a lot of teams are pretending they do the RPO, but the quarterback never pulls the ball out and runs. So, I think this thing's played out. Always somebody comes up with something better, Well, Auburn came up with something really good with Cam Newton. I look out over the field, and I don't see a lot of Cam Newtons out there right now. Even Cam Newton's not Cam Newton anymore. So, this RPO thing, I'm not the biggest fan of it.
Well, as an aside, this came up when we talked pre-podcast. Speaking of the Gators, you think they're a better team now without Felipe Franks?
I do. I just think, look, this is a run. You got P. Ryan in your backfield. He's an elite runner. This is a run. This is a pass. And it doesn't mean you can't stick the ball in his belly and show the run and then pass over their heads because the linebackers got drawn up. I think there'll be an infinitely better team because this guy seems to read the field better than Franks could read the field. Not unlike, really, the way that the Kentucky quarterback was reading the field better after their injury at quarterback.
Devin Cochran is on the depth chart this week. Don't know if he will play or not, but if it's not LSU, I would imagine it is Northern Kentucky. How much will getting him back help?
Northern Illinois. That was my very discreet way. I think it'll mean a ton. I mean, the guy, he's a good ball player. He gets the job done, and then you get another player in his natural position, and then you get to put another player in his natural position, so you're 40% of the way there with your lineman. So I think it would, if and when they get him back, I think it'll be very good. That doesn't mean that Devin's the greatest lineman in the world. That means that people are getting to play the position that they excel at, and you can't overstress that.
One other thing I've noticed that I expected more of, we saw it last year, and it seemed to really spark a lot of good things for the offense. They use motion a lot more towards the end of the year. The offense seemed to play better. Maybe that was coincidental. Maybe it's not. What are your thoughts on the use of motion and why they seem to have gone away from that? Is that an offensive line cohesion, playbook thing? Why would you go away from that when it worked so well a year ago?
Well, generally what you do with motion, and I mean, this is a gross generality, but generally what you do with motion is you're trying to read what the defense is doing. If I send a guy in motion left to right and the guy that was standing over him comes with him, I'm pretty sure I'm locked in on man-to-man coverage. It doesn't mean it's going to be 100%. Maybe man under coverage and zone deep, but I'm pretty sure I know what's going on at that point. That's a lot of the reason you put him in motion. So, and if they leave him alone and let him go over and somebody else is sitting over there waiting, I'm pretty sure it's a zone defense that I'm about to face. So it gives the quarterback, half a second more to read the things. And you mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, you said something earlier about having the quarterbacks go and hurry up. And I felt like that was really big. I felt like Kyle Shermer did really well at that. I felt like he was a rhythm quarterback. I've not seen Raleigh enough to know if he is that way. I think a lot of quarterbacks are rhythm quarterbacks, but some quarterbacks you got to kind of let them get back in the huddle and stop and think things through. It's just, how much did you get to practice and how well do you know what you're doing?
Yeah, they are definitely not in a rhythm right now, and I may research this next week, but it just seems like they are constantly in 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 15. I don't know that they have been in 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3 almost any at all, and I think that really also limits what you can do.
Yeah, I think I talked about that incessantly about staying ahead of the sticks and having manageable third down situations. Manageable's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1. Anything other than that, you got a tough call to make. And so if you're Vanderbilt, everybody's going to try first and foremost to stop Keyshawn. So that kind of makes you think maybe I better pass on first down on the obvious running down. So if you pass on it and it's incomplete, then all of a sudden you put yourself way behind the sticks. And I think that's what they're dealing with right now is, how do we find a way to get Keyshawn loose, or how do we make sure that we got the plays that we can run the ball and get him 3, 4, 5, 6 yards. Keyshawn's at his best after he gets hit. and the guy averaged over 5 yards a carry after contact last year. So, you got to give him the ball in a situation where he can make something happen. So, it's a tough call, and you don't want to throw on first down. You really don't want to unless it's a really high percentage pass.
Is it fair to say teams are just basically selling out to make sure he's not the guy who beats them?
That's what I would do.
Me too.
I
Yeah.
look at him. I look at him, and there are two things that I look at when I see Vanderbilt, and I go back and look at the Texas Bowl. I say, all right, I see a guy that can bounce the ball outside. Or I say, I'm going to seal the edge and make sure he can't bounce it out and make him deal with my linebackers. Yeah, I think he's done a tremendous job so far this year. It's not been there. But the way he's run is really great. But right now, they hadn't figured out the combination of plays to make it where they can make something happen for him, where the linebackers are dropping back in coverage, and all of a sudden, here comes Keyshawn.
Yeah, the one thing I'll give them credit for in terms of offensive scheme is that they don't seem to be predictable in terms of where they run. They're not running inordinately to the middle of the line or outside one tackle. I mean, it seems like they distribute his carries to different spots. It's just they don't seem to be able to block it no matter where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. And I've always been a big fan of, Vince Lombardi with his Packers, where they almost felt like, look, we're going to tell you we're running this thing, and Jerry Kramer's going to be pulling out, and he's going to come and block this guy, and here's what's going to happen. We're going to tell you up front, but we're going to get 3 yards out of it. But that's the way they felt about it. And I think Vanderbilt's searching for those plays that they go, this is what we know we can do. We can execute well. And sadly, you can't do that in preseason. You can't do that in spring ball. You got to do that in real-time competition. And so you got coaches are going around going, all right, what can we do? And so it's a lot of on-the-job training.
Let's switch over to the defensive side, Norman. One thing that they said in preseason was that they thought that they could get a better pass rush by stopping the run, I guess getting teams in long situations, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 9 rather than 2nd and 2, and that just defensive line play would help them get a more manageable or get more of a pass rush. That's not happened. They don't have a sack. I think they may be the only team in the country that does not have a sack. No, Georgia, not a fair fight. Georgia's got the best offensive line in the country, maybe. Got a stable of gifted running backs, so throw that one out. And to their defense, they stopped Purdue's running game pretty well. But the passing game was a different story. Did not get a sack there. What do you see going wrong with the inability to generate sacks?
Well, first of all, stop Purdue's running game. You and I could make 3 phone calls and we could stop their running game. It's really non-existent until they find out, they've got a young guy. I think that'll be really good, but it's non-existent at this point. So it wasn't a big deal to stop their running game. They knew the passing game was going to be what they had to do. And for Vanderbilt, if you're going to stop the passing game, you got to rush the quarterback. And then they never really got the quarterback where he felt like with every football player on the field, there's a point in time where if you get that magic hit, somebody gets you from behind and didn't feel it, you didn't see it coming, it throws you off. And they're not getting that with the quarterbacks. They're not getting to him and having to go, oh, gosh, I didn't see that coming. And you've got to have that happen before you take a guy out of his game.
Well, I know there are downsides to blitzing, and some quarterbacks handle that really well. If you're a really good, smart quarterback, you almost hope you get blitzed all the time. But it seems to me that over the last year or two, they're to a point, I'm not going to say the defense can't get worse, but it's hard to imagine it getting much worse. Why would the trade-off of not blitzing more and doing some things like that not be worth it at this point, given how they really aren't stopping the pass or the run?
Yeah, I thought they had a couple of blitz situations against Purdue that worked out really well. Hebert being one of them. He came in and made a really good play and showed what a football player he is. But, if you go back and you look at the tape, what I saw looking at it was there were a couple of plays with defensive backs that were in position that didn't make the play. And that was 14 points right there. And I'm not making the argument that Vanderbilt could have won, but there was 14 points that could have been interceptions rather than touchdowns. And if you get those guys that haven't had a lot of snaps, and you get them all of a sudden to start making those plays, it's a different football game.
Well, two cases in point. There was the ball that Cam Watkins overran, and look, it is what it is. You are what your record and what the score says you are, and a defensive back's got to make that play. But it was a little flukish, and then you had the official unintentionally picking off a defensive back or two on the Rondale Moore play. So, again, they played poorly. No excuses. You have to at some point make your own breaks, but it did seem like there were a couple of instances there where some things that were a little bit out of the ordinary bit them a bit.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm talking about is I was really leery about the defensive backfield as we came into the year. I think I said that before, but I see really good players doing good things, but that doesn't matter if they don't have the reps out during the games. If they get the repetitions during the games, all of a sudden they know, oh, wait, I'm not adjusted to this. This ball's coming in farther and higher than I thought, so let's adjust to that. First of all, make sure you knock the ball down. Second of all, make sure you pick it off. So I think you got a lot of kids that are good athletes doing good jobs, but they haven't seen it enough to understand it.
Explain what's going on at inside linebacker to me. I keep thinking they've got more talent there than has shown. Maybe I'm out in left field on that one, but I have had a hard time understanding what's gone on there. They can't get Austin Orgy on the field. Dimitri Moore seems to have been demoted after really barely coming off the field last year, and you would think with Jordan Griffin graduating, his role would only be more secure. It's really not gone that way, and yet whoever they put out there really, other than Falete Afamui, who played pretty well against Georgia, it just hasn't been getting the job done. What do you see as the big issues there?
Well, I think, and this is really difficult to understand, and I don't mean to downplay it or anything, but I think what people have a hard time grasping is there really are, when you're on defense, there are 11 guys doing 11 jobs. And when you've got that one guy that seems to be the be-all, end-all, middle linebacker, whoever he is, it's the other 10 guys making sure they cover what they do, and everything funnels to him. So I can't say you've got a problem at middle linebacker until I know, are the other 10 guys doing the job? And that's where I think the problem is. I think you've got guys that are breaking down that aren't getting the job done. And if I see that as a leader of my defense, I'm going to try to cover up for that. And that's not the way a good defense plays.
Well, let me throw a counterpoint at you there, and maybe the answer is obvious, and it's just the other 10 guys are that much better. But 2 years ago, they had a first-team All-American at inside linebacker who didn't seem to be hampered by his surrounding cast. Was that guy's surrounding cast just that much better, or did he do something to overcome that these guys aren't?
I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think what you're saying is correct on both points. Where if you got the 10 guys doing everything, and I was thinking exactly him, but I was also thinking of Jack Russell, who used to be the middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And when Chuck Noll first took over, he called him in, and Russell was the only all-pro guy on his defense. And Chuck Noll said, we're going to miss having you around here. And he's like, what? I mean, you're only all-pro. He said, well, I notice you don't take care of your job. You're taking care of other people's jobs. So we're going to miss having you around here unless you decide that you can take care of your job. And that's really, it's hard to get across to people that how important that is. But if I look to my right and I look to my left and the job's taken care of and it's coming at me, it's my job.
Well, let me ask you.
I know I don't do a good job of explaining that, but it's not that unlike military where, if you're a soldier and you're there on the line, you're really fighting for the guy to the left of you and the guy to the right of you, not you.
Well, it sounds to me like the finger is maybe or perhaps should be pointed to the defensive line because it's their job to occupy blockers and let those guys make plays. Is that the specific thing that you're seeing that's not being done?
I was talking to somebody about this earlier today. It's so hard now with the zone blocking schemes that people have. It's so hard to see when the defensive line's doing the right thing and when they're not getting their job done, because your tackle, your guard may come out in his zone up against his center, and then all of a sudden realize I've got the linebacker coming through here, and if he takes care of it, the linebacker looks bad. So then you got to have somebody coming from somewhere else to make the play. So it's really hard until you just sit and stop and look at the film. It's hard to tell who did what. And again, I don't mean to pretend to even talk over anybody's head, because people that listen know more about football than I'll ever know. But zone blocking is really difficult to point your finger and say, well, you've messed up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're here because you're going to lend insight to things that I just can't. I didn't play, I didn't coach, of course, and that's why I'm asking a lot of the questions for people out there like me that don't get it. But I want to ask you one other one with regards to defense. They have supposedly gone more and more away from the true 3-4 look to a 4-3, and you've seen them do some weird things with the depth chart. 1 week Andre Mintz is a defensive lineman, and the next week they list him as an outside linebacker. Where are they in sort of that in between running a 4-3 and a 3-4? How often do they run a 3-4? How often do they run a 4-3? Just walk us through the schematic changes that they have been going through with that.
Yeah, I think it's all just whatever words you decide you want to use. It's what it is, because in what I see them line up, everything in college football, in the pros for that matter, is a matchup. Right, yeah, if I'm on defense and I look up and the tight end's on my side, all of a sudden I realize I'm not a defensive end anymore. I'm now a linebacker. So in reality, we've gone from a 4-3 to a 3-4 because of what they put us in. So everything, and I can't stress this enough, everything that goes on in college football and the pros now is matchups. And so I've got to try to get my best matchup to their best matchup. And that's what Vanderbilt had a hard time with last week is, you got a wide receiver that is really, really good. Do you have anybody that can run with him? Well, I'm not sure I do. And then all of a sudden this guy goes for, 220 yards. So everything's a matchup. And with Purdue, it was pretty simple. They didn't really have a running game. I don't know that they will this year. That's probably their big weakness, but they've got a really good passing game. You pick your poison, and in Georgia, it is poison. With Purdue, you had one side may have not been poison. The other side was definitely poison.
Okay, we all know the schedule gets easier. And I think that will help. Their defense will be more experienced at the end of the year. I think that helps too. I've said all off season, I think that you could see them make a turn on defense by the end of the year just because of those two things. It still is a pretty young defense. But give me more specifics beyond that, where you think they can get better, where that's because this individual player is this or that guy's that, or anything that you can come with other than schedule and more experience where you see a path to them getting better on that side of the ball.
The path's really tough because they're going to have to learn who can do what in game time. And again, my whole understanding of football pretty much came from when I played, and that is, when Watson got here, he had a pass offense, and he figured out who can do what and what can we do. Well, when you got Norman Jordan in it as your running back, you darn sure better be throwing the football. So you just figure out what you can do with somebody, and you go with that, and then you just go until they stop it. And I think that's the issue that they got so far, is they haven't figured out what can we go with until they stop it? And I think they've got to find that on offense. On defense, I think we're going to see more blitzing. I really do expect to see more blitzing out of the defense, that you're going to have to try to get the mismatches and get the guys coming in, and you're going to have to get the quarterback off of the square right there in the middle of the pocket and have him feel pressure. And when he feels that pressure, all of a sudden he starts making mistakes.
Norman, really appreciate your insight and your answers to the questions tonight. Is there anything that, I feel like we've covered most things. Penalties are self-explanatory. I thought you did a great job of walking through some of the offensive issues, and I think I've exhausted all my defensive questions. But is there anything else worth discussing as a storyline that we didn't get into tonight?
Well, you look at the schedule, and we knew when we got into it, if we can get out of this thing 1-2 out of the first 3 games, that you have to feel pretty good about things. Well, we didn't know that you're going to wind up playing the number 3 team and the number 4 team in the country in your first 3 games. So that really stacks the cards against you. So I think what you got to do, you got to go with LSU and just say, look, we're going to fight you tooth and nail. You're going to come out of here knowing that you were in a football game. LSU's done a great job of opening up their offense. They've got a quarterback that feels comfortable in it. So it's going to be really tough, and they've always had great defenses, great athletes. I think for Vanderbilt, it's another chance to learn and find out who really is my gamer, who can go out there and make plays, and where do I need to be delivering the football on 2nd and 7? Where do I need to make it into a 3rd and 1 or a first down situation? And these guys have to learn a lot about each other, and that's what you do. That's how you play the game. That's why you play the game, is you learn about each other and know who you can rely on, and then it's all good from there.
Norman, appreciate your time, and we look forward to doing this again after the LSU game.
Thank you, Chris. Always a pleasure.
You bet. He's Norman Jordan. I'm Chris Lee, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. We've got one more episode coming later this week.